Hello, I want to make a short little video for describing how to enable ZMK Studio on your keyboard. I have the documentation ready. I will put the documentation in the description if you want to read it more thoroughly, and I will give the example during this video for my Stingray keyboard, which is just a simple numpad, an easy example. The first documentation page that we are looking at is the ZMK Studio page. There are three important sections in here. The first one is about building the firmware with ZMK Studio enabled. For this, you will need to add two sections in your build.yaml if you're using the GitHub Actions. There's also a page for local build, but I'm assuming that most of us will use GitHub Actions for building their code. So we need to add a snippet and a CMake argument to the board that we are trying to build. The second bit of important information is to include extra layers in your keymap. ZMK Studio can remap all the keys within your keymap, but it can't add extra layers. So if you want the freedom to add extra layers later on, you can already include them as a status reserved. And then lastly is the part about adding ZMK Studio support to a keyboard. This describes the need for a physical layout in your device tree, and you cannot have a chosen ZMK matrix transform, but I'll go through the code to actually explain. And then the second piece of documentation is the physical layouts. This is a node within your device tree that is needed for enabling ZMK Studio, as here the keys are defined. I will come back to this later on when we go through the code. The code for my macropad is available on GitHub under Lenro3xd ZMK config numpad. The code for my macropad is available on GitHub under Lenro3xd ZMK config numpad. Now let's have a look at the code. First off, we have our build.yaml. Open this file, we see that I added the two lines of code here in the include for my board, the numpad. It is the snippet and the CMake arguments for enabling ZMK Studio support. Next, we'll have a look at our overlay file. The overlay file is located in board, shield, numpad, numpad.overlay. This is our overlay file of our keyboard that we are trying to make. And here we can see that we have a physical layout node. This is the physical layout node. What can we see within the physical layout node? We have the regular description of what node we are working on. So it is the compatible tag. It's filled with ZMK physical layout. Then we have our display name. That is something you set yourself, free of choice. Then another required field is the transform. That is your matrix transform. In my case, it's a label default transform, and it's described a little higher up. This is the default transform of the layout of my keyboard. And then lastly, we have a K-scan. In my case, it's a default K-scan. This is an optional field. If all of your physical layouts use the same K-scan, you don't need to describe it here, and you can just use the description of your label for the default K-scan within your chosen tag. And then lastly, we have the most important bit for ZMK Studio, that is the keys tag. So within the keys, you have a list of physical attributes for your keys. That's describing how large your keys, what the position of your keys, and ZMK Studio will visualize this, so you can select which key you want to edit. So we see that we now have a physical layout node, and within our chosen device tree node, we have a reference to this physical layout. So this is the physical layout that we've chosen. And lastly, we'll have to take a look at our keymap. We go back to our numpad.keymap. Here we see a couple of different things that need to be mentioned. First off, we have the extra layers. These are the layers that can be used by ZMK Studio. So currently they just have a status reserved, as is described in the documentation. And then last, there is a key that needs to be present on your keymap, which is the Studio Unlock. This makes it so your keyboard gives permission to your keyboard to edit it, basically. You'll see once we open the Studio, ZMK Studio program itself, how it works. And then lastly, let's have a look at ZMK Studio itself. There's a browser version and there's a desktop version. I have the desktop version installed. When you open the program, it's going to look for which keyboards you have available. Currently, I have two keyboards connected, Stingray and the Cheapo 3XZ. And Stingray is connected both over Bluetooth and over USB. I prefer to use ZMK Studio over USB because it's more reliable. So next step, it's asking us to unlock to continue. This is the Studio Unlock key that we added to our keymap. We press that and then we can see, oh, here is the changes that we, or the layout that we made. This is the physical layout. And we can change whatever key we want by pressing the key, and then here on the bottom there's the selection. On the left you have the layers that we can add, 3, 2, 4, and that's the 4 layers that we have in our keymap. I'm going to remove them again. If we take a look at our keymap, we see I had extra layer 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's as easy as it gets.